On May 23, 1993, wax, or the discovery of television among the bees, entered the internet, projected by a cable into a wall. Inside that internet, there are no movies there. And so wax, waiting until the last frame enters the wall, then begins the first movie on the internet, to continue forever, for that is how the first movie on the internet begins, at the first frame after the last frame. A true story, and this is that movie, and in reverse. And so, we begin.
As you are aware, the internet is a DVD on a coffee cup. I could show you how that happens, how the handle of the coffee cup becomes the hole in the center of the DVD. How the interior of the coffee cup disappears into the surface of a flat disc as I spin. I am the first movie on the internet. I am inside a DVD on a coffee cup. I could show you how that happens. How the movie appears between two frames, between the front and the back of the DVD disc. I am the first frame after the last frame. I am the movie in the DVD on the coffee cup. I am wax, or the discovery of television among the bees. I am 999 years, 364 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 48 seconds long. And then it was dark, until dawn.
Each Sunday, ghosts would appear at a seance in Tavistock Square to be photographed with the living by Ella and her special camera. Each Sunday, ghosts would appear at a seance in Tavistock Square to be photographed with the living by Ella and her special camera. Each Sunday, ghosts would appear at a seance in Tavistock Square to be photographed with the living by Ella and her special camera. Each Sunday, ghosts would appear at a seance in Tavistock Square to be photographed with the living by Ella and her special camera.
Another ghost relative, also carried by sad non-ectoplasmic family to photo sessions, and taken home on paper as photo proof that these dead could be met, for a ransom, and indeed were always ready to talk through the paid human medium about anything that didn't require too much ghostly concentration. This coy ghost here is only showing us one eye, hiding as it is like a child in the curtains, but you can't doubt that it was chatty. With a few carefully chosen words, and an orchestra of scent from the candles and dried flowers placed on the table by the emotional medium, a friendly ghost opens up the call that protects her after birth in the new world of blankness that she sees. For the moment, a moment that lasts forever, but not in every religion, as a nice and somewhat dim vacation spot. She opens it to reveal her face, letting us recognize her not as a relative but as someone who once lent us a pen in school. Then she begins to speak, revealing her true emotions about topics that she may never actually have managed to master in her day life. While you stare and wonder at the great ghostly substances you have paid to see, that are streaming around the fan and the light bulbs, your partner is staring at you in a somewhat unseemly manner, halfway between repulsion and attraction. That's because someone is coming out of your nose, without your permission, and that's okay. You didn't even know it was happening until just now. Oh, what an idea the light bulb was, blinking in the dark, using power previously assigned to hair that stood straight up, which now is used to keep the dark away, and forever after will be used as a sign in the comics for a good idea. Cling, blink, suddenly appearing in your head and also halfway into the air in the shape of a lit bulb. Here, someone is in the bulb, a sort of fetal afterthought coming into the world in the shape of a person, pressing to be born against the fragile sides of the imaginary glass light bulb somewhat strangely hanging in the middle of the air above your air, not held up there by a wire or other support or power source. The man having this thought and other thoughts has his hair slicked back and a pair of shadows under his eyes. The power of his thoughts are being sucked out of his head and up through his hair by the power of morning, which has brought him here to the medium's studio in mid-afternoon. It tires him. Two children who've grown up, who once thought they were sisters and later realized that they were only neighbors, and who were separated rather quickly by the elevated train built over the street separating their houses. Every day, people went by overhead, and they could barely hear each other when they were able to get together to play because the squeaky tracks were used to full capacity by heavy trains that went by almost every other sentence. So, when ghosts gather overhead and chat, here in later years in the morning room of the Tavistock Square Medium, they have long ago learned to keep their quiet, as the voices roar by overhead. Other sisters, same problem. From another part of town down the street several stops. Someone wearing white cotton, as always, has popped into photographic reality right above them, which as always, again, is enough to make either of these women pensive, not hopeful.
Often the ghosts spoke to Ella. Often the ghosts spoke to Ella. Often the ghosts spoke to Ella. Often the ghosts spoke to Ella.
An older man with a cravat and tie has as his friend a blurred blob that looks a lot like him. Maybe he mourns himself, or a victim of temporal paradox, is both dead and alive. Yet another male mourner, only his whitened face and white collar separating him from the dark, just as the square white frame of the picture separates it from the darkness which is the place at the back of every picture. Above his head is a reversed sea of light. His head dots the question mark. A fuzzily blurred TV-made ghost, though here we are so far before the current era that any recorded tele-image would be pressed on wax, that tabula rasa medium of even earlier writing.
One talkative ghost had died in an auto accident. One talkative ghost had died in an auto accident. One talkative ghost had died in an auto accident. One talkative ghost had died in an auto accident.
Oxfordshire, probable former physical location of many events in this narrative section. Roads run like veins across the named landscape. When cut, they bleed out cars. An auto in ruin, and an excellent opportunity for a moral lesson. Notice also that the ruined aluminum radiator could be a hive frame. Another accident scene, taken from across the street. We can see that there is writing on the road, indicating both the limits of motion and reading. Recorded on film made of acetate, also used in honeycomb and hair comb. Other cars roll past without wondering what is happening, though probably the presence of the camera, which has our point of view, helps indicate that there is nothing more to be learned here.
This ghost was the dead wife of the Hungaro-Egyptian gentleman who often attended the seances. This ghost was the dead wife of the Hungaro-Egyptian gentleman who often attended the seances. This ghost was the dead wife of the Hungaro-Egyptian gentleman who often attended the seances. This ghost was the dead wife of the Hungaro-Egyptian gentleman who often attended the seances.
Exploding cartoon stars fill the frame. A ghost picture of the dead wife of Sultan Abbasid. This phantasm has a more active will than most. Text from the magazine put out by the Bee Kingdom League of Alexandria, Egypt.
This sad gentleman was the charming bee scientist, Sultan Abbasid. This sad gentleman was the charming bee scientist, Sultan Abbasid. This sad gentleman was the charming bee scientist, Sultan Abbasid. This sad gentleman was the charming bee scientist, Sultan Abbasid.
Members of the Bee Kingdom League in Patriarchal Conference. Abbasid is not among them. The door behind them leads down, to the dark stacked clay honey jars, and the dark rooms where they still seal oxen overnight, hoping to find the beasts turn spontaneously into swarms when morning comes. It works. A conspirator's view of the Bee Kingdom League, discussing new apiary techniques and the pressures of recapitalization. Or, perhaps more interestingly, they discuss the most recent political allegories of the bee life, which inevitably end with the unspoken tagline, "Egypt must be free." A supposed photo of Zoltan Abbasid, but in reality an image of Zamenhof, inventor of Esperanto, during the last years of his life. Abbasid cultivated the resemblance, one time, in his youth. He jumped a steamer and headed towards the Black Sea, in the hope of finding Zamenhof in Odessa, but he was found and sent back.
Ellis Spiralim discovered that Sultan Abbasid knew her half-brother, James Hivemaker. Ellis Spiralim discovered that Sultan Abbasid knew her half-brother, James Hivemaker. Ellis Spiralim discovered that Sultan Abbasid knew her half-brother, James Hivemaker. Ellis Spiralim discovered that Sultan Abbasid knew her half-brother, James Hivemaker.
Bees in the palm of a white-shirted hand. Two places seen at once, from the perspective of bee sight, and the haptic fourth dimension it inhabits. An ill-fated trio of bees encounter each other outside of the hive. A horrible moment ensues, which I will not describe here, or ever. Three types of bees in a single floral frame. There might also be a fourth type, a television bee, not seen here, whose two front eyes long ago fused and became phosphorescent, like the rear of a firefly. A system of pheromone communication is said to control the many separated parts of these glowing eye images. An anatomy of the television bee is provided separately.
It was Sultan Abbasid who had brought Mesopotamian bees to England. Abbasid had discovered the bees near Basra, in the south of Mesopotamia. It was Sultan Abbasid who had brought Mesopotamian bees to England. Abbasid had discovered the bees near Basra, in the south of Mesopotamia. It was Sultan Abbasid who had brought the Mesopotamian bees to England. Abbasid had discovered the bees near Basra, in the south of Mesopotamia. It was Sultan Abbasid who had brought the Mesopotamian bees to England. Abbasid had discovered the bees near Basra, in the south of Mesopotamia.
An English language map of local Basra, the largest city below the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Originally a site just outside the former Garden of Eden that was popularly used as an informal gathering area for family reunions, it soon gained commercial importance, and has lasted far past the memories of the original families. A moving picture of a sailing ship on the river, perhaps carrying raw sweets. Men wait with nets, stifling under blankets in the back of the boat, hoping to trap lost souls sticky with sugar they steal from the open load. A view outside the mud walls of Basra, perhaps during the time described. Donkeys and porters are at work, perhaps carrying dates to market. Abbasid, a bit too Darwinist for his own good, too often looked at people far away, and pretended to himself that they were bees. A pair of simple bees feeding on liquid sugar. It is a common practice in the West to make such liquors are commonly made available to assist in the survival and growth of captive hives.
In the fall of 1916, the bee plague struck hive makers' farm. In the fall of 1916, the bee plague struck hive makers' farm. In the fall of 1916, the bee plague struck hive makers' farm. In the fall of 1916, the bee plague struck hive makers' farm.
A picture taken at the base of the hive, where a worker expels a dead bee from the hive. This corpse may not be the plague-struck, but an ordinary member of the dead, or, perhaps, a male drone discarded during the annual purge, which took place yesterday, just after fertilization of the local queen during mid-air flight in a marked multi-hive fertilization zone high and far from this single hive. Multiple royal suitors vied for and won the attention of Queen. Each died later. Those drones still remaining in the hive when she returns are not tolerated there. They are sent to the front door dead. Still image of many dead bees on the sill of the hive. The end of the world. Once again, somewhere else.
British bees began to die, their breathing tubes infested by parasite mites. British bees began to die, their breathing tubes infested by parasite mites. British bees began to die, their breathing tubes infested by parasite mites. British bees began to die, their breathing tubes infested by parasite mites.
Dead bees lying on white, as if they were dead giants seen through the wrong end of a telescope. Martians, looking through telescopes, see us this size, but they are happy to see us alive and in motion, whereas you really don't care that these bees are dead. They're in the past, in that photo on your screen. A vicious child dissects the dead bees with nail scissors, all the while pretending loudly to be doing some good. An anatomical diagram, or image from within a dead bee, showing the breathing apparatus of the bees. The mites march into the earth of the bee gullet, each wearing a protective helmet. There, they blast and hammer, mining dark life from inside the bee. The reversed telescope, with new objective, focuses close on breathing tubes infested with parasite mites. This is a segment of the tube, and mites spill out of either end. This is the plague writ large. An artist's rendition of the terrible mites. Apparently brute, dumb things, they actually speak in poetry, and if nature would only give them 1,000 years of peace, an excess of food and access to electricity, they would produce beautiful things.
Fortunately, the Mesopotamian bees flourished and quickly took root in the empty hives of the dead bees. Fortunately, the Mesopotamian bees flourished and quickly took root in the empty hives of the dead bees. Fortunately, the Mesopotamian bees flourished and quickly took root in the empty hives of the dead bees. Fortunately, the Mesopotamian bees flourished and quickly took root in the empty hives of the dead bees.
A bee grub, just grown and soon to take further shape, once again in a floral frame. The grub is head down in a bee cell. On the other side of the thin wax, another small bee is also growing, forward to forward with this one. They trade thoughts across the membrane, remembering previous years and forms, preparing for more fun in a new life. Using internal rules, the above grub has developed into a bee shape, folded angel, insect flower bud about to open and fly up. Flowers fall down. The dissolving development of the bee continues, as we graduate to a true worker, fully shaped but still unborn, enclosed within the walls of its cell. A segment of the hive has been cut to reveal white grubs in their cells, and, of interest to us, a single bee in birthing itself, pushing out of the close walls of its regular cell. It doesn't have a name. Instead, it has a time and direction, which will stick to it during its life in and out of the hive. Through a frontal shot of a comb, at right angle to the previous shot in absolute space, but far away at another hive in real space, we see a bee continue in its motion of being born from a sealed cell. The front of the comb resembles photomicrographic images of the bee's eye, so it is as if we were watching through mysterious analogy the action of the bee's sight. Dark blank light as the hive grows dim, hiding its secrets. On TV, even the night glows, made up of active electrons. You can still see silhouettes by the light of a dark screen.
At that moment, a sudden love grew between Ellis Sprawlem and Zoltan Abbasid. At that moment, a sudden love grew between Ellis Sprawlem and Zoltan Abbasid. At that moment, a sudden love grew between Ellis Sprawlem and Zoltan Abbasid. At that moment, a sudden love grew between Ellis Sprawlem and Zoltan Abbasid.
The film star face of Ella Spear Allen, as once again she opens her mascara eyes to stare at us in surprise. A peekaboo. Ella is taking a picture through a box camera, and in the middle of the action lifts her coy face to look at us, or our on-site proxy, with obvious love.
The two were married in the early winter. The two were married in the early winter. The two were married in the early winter. The two were married in the early winter.
We see the cowboys of America, happy and polite. 3 are standing and have hats, and one is on a horse, his head hidden out of frame. They are not surprised to meet us, and politely remove their hats, and the horse itself nods at us too.
For their honeymoon, Zoltan Abbasid took his new wife to America to see the cowboys. For their honeymoon, Zoltan Abbasid took his new wife to America to see the cowboys. For their honeymoon, Zoltan Abbasid took his new wife to America to see the cowboys. For their honeymoon, Zoltan Abbasid took his new wife to America to see the cowboys.
Long shot across the desert. A bucking bronco crosses, trying to jump the air. Here we are, just outside the horse hive. Bronco and handler enter left. Several other horse enter, and a foreground cowhand helps provide motion reference, so that we can better appreciate the true velocity and danger of such sport. Flatland freedom. Meanwhile, traveling bugs pass by overhead, on their way to San Francisco or other waters.
They stopped in Alamogordo, New Mexico. They stopped in Alamogordo, New Mexico. They stopped in Alamogordo, New Mexico. They stopped in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
From rather high in the air we are able to enjoy a moving image showing many horse-drawn cowboys in chase after some sort of small animal. A monkey cat, or some other strange small American beast that had gone extinct by the beginning of the century. The black and white centaurs vanish into the sky above Alamogordo. The camera shows us a scene down the main street, mainly the foreshortened tops of some buildings of mixed styles. Jacob returns to Earth. Down one of grid-angled streets, we can see a stop sign. Cars move towards and away from us, and also cross-frame. A town with too many stories, walls that block off interiors that communicate by doors and windows, and provide resting places for mobile dreams that often need automotive transport. A big place. Blue concrete spreading out in front of camera lens, and the mountains rising in the background, brings us home to the earth of the present.